lost to ignorance and confusion, three men arose from humble beginnings with a message of wisdom and hope for their troubled times. Three men who would eventually change the very face of humanity. But they were not the droids we're looking for. So, here are some other guys.
It's Song Talk Radio with Michael, Neil, Phil, and the gang.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, episode number 281. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and with me are the Summertastic members of the Song Talk Radio action team. We have Mosquito Bite Michael.
We were just talking about mosquito bites. So
Really?
far unscathed.
So far unscathed.
That's
we didn't get into the woods.
I haven't been to the Great White North. I haven't been up to a cottage yet.
Well, yeah, I think city council banned them from the city. Like, there's no mosquitoes in the city.
Ah, I see.
Right.
Or Doug Ford is levying a tax on them.
He's levying a tax on them. And on social media tonight, we have Muggy Day Micah.
Hey.
See, he's talking and he won't take a mic.
Fine. I'll take a mic if you guys want.
Take a mic. Take a mic, Micah.
Hello.
And on the tech board tonight, it's Relaxation Rita.
Hey.
Hey. with the knobs and the sliders making it sound good.
So.
All right. During the show, send in your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio if you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Feedback at songtalk.ca, and we'll share them with the audience. And please visit us at songtalk.ca and find out how you can be a guest on the show. Tonight, Robert Cross was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. He started playing guitar at the age of 14 just so he could learn how to write songs. Cross has written songs for other Southern California acts such as pop-punk band Aim for the Heart and country rock artist David Bucci. Cross is a singer and guitarist of the original rock band Satin, who released their first album Drop Dead Gorgeous in 2019. Welcome to Song Talk Radio, Robert.
Welcome, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
You came all the way from LA just to see us.
I stopped by. I have family in the Detroit area, and like Phil mentioned, and the mosquitoes are out, and I got eaten alive while I was down there. So I had to run up here to Canada just to get away from them.
Right on. Because it's colder up here and they don't survive?
I guess not, yeah.
Oh, you're in for a big shock. You think there's no mosquitoes. Actually, no, there's some mosquitoes. It's black flies that are the killers here.
Yeah, but you got to go to the Muskoka area if you want.
Yeah, you got to go north of Steeles.
You're north of Steeles.
Cottage country.
Cottage country. Okay. So you've been writing songs a long time, Robert? Yeah. And so you actually approached, most of us, when we start as musicians, we play cover songs. And you leapt into songwriting right away?
Yeah, my uncle was a huge, he still is a huge music fan. And right around the summer I was 13 or so, he was talking to me about how he always played piano, and he told me how he had an acoustic guitar, nylon string, that he wanted to learn how to play as well. And that was right around the time I started getting into modern rock, pop music, things like that. And literally one day right around my 14th birthday, I was like, it'd be interesting to start writing songs. And the next logical thought, which is very unusual for a teenager to have any kind of logical thinking, at least for me, was, well, if I want to write songs, I should learn how to play an instrument. And I thought of that guitar my uncle had mentioned to me. And so I asked my uncle the next day or the next week or something like that. I said, hey, that guitar you said that you bought that you never learned how to play, would you mind giving it to me? He's like, sure. Gave it to me, and learned a few chords, and that's where I started.
Right on.
Excellent.
Is there something you would tell your 14-year-old self from a songwriting perspective now?
Where to look? I would buy guitar magazines at the time, thinking that would be the place to learn from the guys you hear on the radio or the kind of music you like. Thinking that those magazines and articles would have information on how to write songs, and they rarely ever would, and it would always frustrate me. And
it'd be about their gear or something, right?
Well, exactly.
Didn't some of them have transcripts in the back in the back of certain popular songs, and they would say how how Andy Summers played this or how whatever, what sort of tuning he used or whatever, when they talk about those sorts of from a technical point of view as to how to play that song.
Yeah, right. A lot of it too would be they'd be talking about the pedals they had and things like that, how they would get that tone for the guitar riff or something.
It's almost like those magazines were just trying to sell things.
Yeah, right. That dawned on me later on.
Right. So again, if you were talking to 14-year-old Robert and he's flipping through all these magazines, you're like, stop, you don't need that. What do you do instead?
It took me a while. That was something where I'm trying to think how to say this concisely, where I would ask around a lot, my friends and family and stuff. And what I would do is since I didn't really know how to play, I would just write lyrics. And, as you might imagine, they were horrible, all over the place. And so naturally you'd get a lot of feedback that, people were trying to be nice, but, what I didn't know at the time was like a lot of creative writing would help kind of bring out certain things. So maybe not to focus necessarily on just jumping into writing songs, but to kind of learn how to express yourself, learn how to articulate the language.
Right, whether it's through poetry or through just prose or journaling or whatever.
Exactly.
Maybe just get something down.
So you develop a creative habit, and it could come out in different ways.
Yes, exactly. So that would be something, as well as just calm down, the idea that my original thinking, and kind of from what I've heard here and from other places, there's this idea that when you write a song, you write it in one session. You sit down in 15 minutes and it just pours out of you.
Ideally.
And
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe
Very, very rarely.
one in a million.
And even then, it's a first draft.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think some songwriters do kind of say that the song exists up there somewhere, and you just access it, that you're not actually the agent of creating it, but just the agent through which it flows. Yeah, you're the receiver.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think Keith Richards has said that.
Oh, yeah?
So, or he's like more like an antenna who kind of tunes into some cosmic, signal or something that you mentioned.
You just got to make yourself creative enough to be open to wherever it comes in.
Yeah, right.
Hone your antenna.
Yeah.
Right.
So would it be safe to say you started out writing lyrics first and then putting music to lyrics?
That's how I tried. That's kind of how I thought it happened. Since I didn't really know how to play guitar as a teenager or early on, I had hoped to find that collaborator, that guy who was proficient, and then that I could drop the lyrics into some music that he composed, kind of thinking.
Right.
And that would be another thing too, that like you had mentioned, what would I tell myself then? It's like don't wait for someone else to kind of help complete your thought. Try and complete your own thoughts.
So when you tried to find a collaborator, that didn't really
and most guys were, as you imagine, most teenagers aren't very good at playing. So so it wound up just being kind of a crash and burn throughout high school. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess musicians in high school are playing cover songs or rocking out for the chicks or something.
Yeah, right.
Oh, let's get together another teenage guy. We'll just write songs together. It's probably not as common.
A lot of guys wanted to just jam too.
Yeah, for sure.
So they didn't really want to sit down and have some kind of structured something to learn. It was like this idea, I'm at school learning all day. Last thing I want to do is get together with the guys and learn. So a lot of guys would just want to just be very carefree and just play.
Right, and see what comes out.
And that was something I honestly kind of found frustrating in my own. It was like, let's get some songs together, let's go play. And then, I'd have some guys that just wanted just to jam.
Yeah.
So
that can work. Like I'm in a band right now, and that can work where we just loosely jam, and then at a certain point we saw, like, that riff was pretty cool. Let's try and develop that. But I find for the most part that, I mean, it's fun, but it's a bit of I don't want to say wasting time, but like it's not
time efficient.
It's not time efficient. What the better approach in my view is when one of the band members, would be me or somebody else in the band, comes forward with at least the bare bones of something, the chords, the lyrics, and then we hash it out and we say, well, maybe verse 2 isn't quite working. Let's try this. Let's try that. Someone comes with some kind of foundation, of an idea. Like the song is generally this. Let's see what we can do with it.
And I guess it depends on the kind of band you are, what works best as a songwriting structure.
Yeah, certainly.
So when did it start working for you? What were those circumstances?
Slowly, certain ideas, like certain patterns, I guess, in my own, like early on I found I was a real title guy. So I'd find like either a word or a title, like a phrase or something like that. And I learned kind of early on that I couldn't write a song in a single session. This idea I'm going to dedicate 15, 30 minutes or something like that and just write. It just, I would find myself getting real anxious and feel a sense of pressure and trying to force something out that just didn't work. What I slowly started realizing is if I pieced ideas together, usually starting with a title and then building out from there. Having the way I look at it is kind of the title kind of anchors the thought down, whatever angle I'm going to take from that. And then I kind of build it from there. Kind of as time went by, I started realizing, looking back at what how it's like, I had a few songs written. It's like, well, how did I write these? And kind of looking back and analyzing a little bit and seeing what worked, what was working for me.
Yeah, sometimes I look at it like the title's kind of sort of like your thesis.
Yeah,
and
right.
Then you got your supporting arguments together.
Yeah.
That constitutes the rest of the song. Yeah.
So then does the title or the lyrics that come from the title, the mood that it creates influence the music, or do you just fit music to the way the lyrics scan or the melody of the lyrics?
It can go both ways. With like the song Afterglow, that was a title that had popped in my head at one point, and when or a title I'd set aside, I should say. It was like, okay, I'm going to write a song called this. I didn't know how it was going to sound or what it was going to be. But
did you have a conception in your mind of what Afterglow meant to you?
Not really, to be honest.
Just thought it was a cool word.
I just thought it was a cool word.
Sounded nice.
Yeah, and you know what it was? In fact, my viewpoint on this has changed now from when I came up with that. But at the time, I was realizing a lot of groups had a song called Afterglow. Right. And Genesis has one.
I was just thinking of that one. Yeah.
You know, and I think NXS has one, and I'm blanking on the others. But so I thought, I should maybe write a song called. I like that word. It's a cool sounding word. And now I actually would shy away from that. Now I would try to come up with something a little more unique.
That's a good challenge. I remember writing a song about rain just because everyone has a rain song. I should write a rain song.
Right, exactly,
I was living in Vancouver. I go, okay, I'll find a place to write a song about rain.
Yeah.
But when the music popped in my head, immediately I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to call this Afterglow. I'm going to build from there. So that was one time I had an idea, and then when another idea came, I immediately was able to put the two together. And run with it.
Are you like documenting your ideas like on your phone, or do you have a notebook or something you kind of jot down things?
Personal secretary?
I wish. That's what I need because I am such an organized mess kind of guy. So in my phone, I have folders in my computer with Word files and little MP3 or song files of melodies.
Snippets. Yeah.
And a lot of times I just need to dedicate time just to go through things. If I have some time or if I'm feeling inspired to just go through whatever files I have.
Did you ever do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, and I need to definitely get better at organizing ideas because I'll try and give like titles, maybe
tags.
Yeah, tags of some kind, other than just generic numeric tags.
Yeah. Riff number 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's only so helpful.
Yeah, you know,
not an inspiring title.
Yeah.
So you brought a couple of songs for us to play tonight. Which one are we going to play first? I'm not going to say Magnolia, but maybe you could tell us a bit about how that came to be. Magnolia.
Yeah, Magnolia came about. That song actually took a while, but I had just written the chords, and I wrote it on my acoustic guitar. And
so you're saying this one, the music came first?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
Where I live in Southern California, there are magnolia trees all over the place, and at this time of year, they're all in bloom. They kind of June, July-ish, and they're huge. I haven't seen any here, so I don't know if there are any magnolia trees here in
illegal.
Toronto. Apparently. But they're just gorgeous. They're huge flowers. They're totally different than any other kind of flower that currently exists. And it was that uniqueness that stood out to me, which is why I kind of latched onto the word magnolia. And I wanted to use that as a metaphor for someone special in my life to make for that metaphor, comparing that person to a magnolia flower.
I actually looked up about magnolias. Apparently, they're a very, very old species of flower.
Yes.
From before there were insects to pollinize.
Yes.
They self-pollinate.
Yes.
Cool.
See, you can learn things on this show, not just about songwriting.
This is also a biology class now.
Exactly. Useless cocktail party knowledge. That's what I bring to the table.
Okay, let's take a listen.
Oh, we'll take a listen, yeah.
Magnolia.
What I
And that was Magnolia.
Music and lyrics by Robert Cross.
And the band is Satin,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Satin. Where'd that name come from?
It's a name that popped in my head one time. In fact, as a weird coincidence, the name popped in my head.
Anyone accidentally call you Satan?
And unfortunately, I've had that mistake. And after I thought of that, there was a group I had heard of, at least in the U.S. I don't know if this is the case here, but they were marketed as the London Suede.
Yeah.
And I believe throughout the rest of the world they're known as Suede, but
Yeah.
through a trademark dispute.
Huh.
So I immediately thought of that group.
And the English Beat had the same problem.
Yeah, right, yeah. And they're the Beat in the UK, but in America they're the English Beat because of,
Because in England would be redundant to say.
No, well, because there was an American band called the Beat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a
Right,
trademark
gotcha.
thing
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something, or they had first dibs. And I actually got into Suede about a year or two later. I actually became a real big Suede fan. Kind of unrelated, but...
The band, not the material.
yeah,
Just to be clear.
Yes, just to be clear, the band, yes.
This is not a haberdashery show.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay.
So
So again, it was just a cool word. You like this?
Yeah, it was a cool word. I liked,
Satin.
it's like the materials, it's a nice sensual material.
absolutely.
I felt it invoked a kind of imagery that I associated with.
Yeah.
And a lot of people seem to like the name. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, you get the occasional Satan,
Yeah.
mispronunciation or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'll deal with it.
It happens.
Well, I was
there's
reading your
worse.
bio earlier today. And I'm like, okay, I better not make that mistake when I'm introducing you.
Hey, you're doing great.
Yeah, thank
so.
you.
So far.
So yeah, it's a great song. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
The chorus is really wordy.
Yeah.
Like the chorus almost as many words as the verse.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's kind of interesting that it keeps on building and building and building, and then you got that little. I'm calling it a pre-chorus. I'm completely consumed. Seeing you in full bloom, like just before you drop in the chorus. That's a great little break, and then you drop into the chorus. At the very end of the chorus, when you say to me, "I'm your magnolia, I'm your magnolia," I'm kind of missing the "I'm" in that last. I have it on the lyric sheet in front of me, but I was listening to it. I'm like, I'm not hearing the "I'm," so it got a little muddled for me what that end phrasing was. I don't know if you felt that way, Michael.
No, I didn't. I kind of like let it
Just sort of wash over
because
you.
the wash because even when it's on the lyric sheet, the lyrics are quite precise.
Yes.
And they don't always rhyme. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
It's not such. But just hearing them, I think earlier on this about I think it's Euphoria, but it isn't pronounced. It's sung differently. So that's part of singing is. The way it's written isn't always how it's sung, so I don't really miss it.
Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like
fair
I don't miss strict grammar or that sort of thing, especially when it's kind of sung in this fashion where words are stretched out, and it seems to be more of the feel than making sure the poetry is heard.
Yeah, right.
Is that kind of your approach? You'll trump melody and kind of the way it feels over articulation?
I try, the key word here is try,
Yeah.
to preserve the natural shape of the language.
Right.
And one thing I really had a hard time learning, and now I find myself hypercritical to, is conforming words to a melody. You walk into the room kind of thing. Like nobody talks like that.
Yes.
You'd say like I walk into the room.
Yeah.
And one thing I've really tried, it's easier said than done. It's like when I sit here and talk right now, I can say, I sing it, walk into the room. Very smooth,
Yeah.
But you sit there behind a microphone trying to sing, and you'll tend to want to break it apart or something.
But then you got it's different too, because you got a rhythm that you're trying to.
Exactly.
And,
So you deal with a lot of
some people
variables.
do sing very conversationally, and then other people, let's listen to Lizzo, her single Juice, and the beginning of it is so staccato, just the way she sings. There's virtually no other rhythm. It's just the way she speaks, and it's not a natural way of pronouncing the words, but it sure is hooky, and
Right.
it gets the song going.
Yeah.
So
We did an episode on the show a while back about talk singing.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of examples of songs where the artist is not like they're still singing in pitch, but they're not holding the notes basically.
Right.
And the kind of lilt of their voice sort of just goes down, like you're just talking,
Yeah.
as opposed to sustaining a note, right? So it's a different approach. But of course, you're not doing that here. What else? What did you think of the song, Michael?
I thought it was interesting. I was like I like to listen to it without reading the lyrics first, and then I go back and listen to it with the lyrics, and I got kind of a different feel from it the second time when I was
actually, because when I listened to this when you first sent it to us, like last week or whatever, and I was following on lyrics, but then earlier today while I was working, I just had it on as I was working, and I'm like, you feel it more.
The song feels kind of triumphant, right? But the lyrics seem a little more reflective, and so it kind of it made me wonder what Magnolia means to you, or what it represents in the song.
It really represents that uniqueness, that special someone you fall in love with, or you find yourself in love with, can be the only person in the world, or whatever those idiosyncratic personality traits or whatever are found in that one person that you're in love with at that moment, whether it's now or some moment in your life, and making the metaphor of comparing it to a magnolia. And magnolia, flowers in general tend to have a feminine association, roses and things of that nature, guys giving flowers to women and all that. And so, there is a little bit of that kind of playing to that general direction as well. And that's why it was key to me to have that I'm your magnolia. Originally I came up with the Euphoria Magnolia rhyme. That was something I was like, okay, I know I'm going to rhyme those words, but I didn't know how to kind of turn it into the love interest, if you will, and that's where I ultimately fitted in the "I'm your magnolia" part in the lyric.
Did the lyrics take a lot of revisions?
Yeah, I struggled with the first line. Something as simple as, at that time I was writing kind of more to the melody, and I had I originally. It's like now I'm driven by what I find drop dead gorgeous, possessed by my passion and desire. For some reason, I wanted to say, instead of I'm driven by, I wanted to put I'm possessed by. But then I used the word possessed by my passion and desire, so I didn't want to use the same word twice. So I found myself in this interesting little space where I was hung up on just this one little word, and for some reason I was having a really hard time finding a word to stick in there. You could
have swapped them. I'm possessed by what I find drop dead gorgeous, driven by my passion and desire.
I didn't come up with the
alliteration.
Word. I didn't come up with the word.
Right. You lose the alliteration.
I didn't come up with the word driven yet, and actually I was on a little bit of a Rush kick at that time. And on the Test for Echo album, they had a song called "Driven."
Right.
And that's where I got. Sometimes just right in front of you, I just.
Oh yeah.
I just went, okay, let me plug that word right in.
You always liberally borrow from.
Right.
Steal,
whatever.
Yeah, right.
Borrowing's for amateurs.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. But I actually want to bring our listeners' attention to the verse, because the verse is actually really, it's structured really nicely. Like, I'm driven by, possessed by my, you got the repeating riff, but then again, but the last two lines is completely a different structure, right? Because often I find songwriters, especially beginning songwriters, and even seasoned songwriters, they tend to the verse is one thing. Right, where your verse here is actually, it's kind of a verse and a pre-chorus, really.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's like a verse, a tiny little pre. It's like two lines, and then you drop in a chorus. So it's pretty cool that way. And speaking of cool,
we'll
be right back.
Taking a break. And we're back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to Song Talk Radio, streaming on songtalk.ca. And tonight, our guest is singer-songwriter Robert Cross, all the way from Los Angeles, California. Thanks for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
And don't forget, we'd love to hear from you even during the show, especially during the show. So if you have questions or comments...
Feel free to interrupt.
Credit card numbers, anything. We'd be happy to have them.
Recipes.
So share your thoughts, recipes, sure. Questions with us. Share your thoughts and questions with us at Song Talk Radio on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram, or send us an email to feedback@songtalk.ca. We will share your thoughts, as long as they're polite, and answer your questions here on the show. And also you can share your thoughts and your song with us at our Song Talk meetup. Our July one is at the end of the month on the 28th, Sunday the 28th.
From 1 to 4 p.m.
In the afternoon, Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
So you can come right after church.
Right.
And bring us your songs, and you'll get feedback. It's a really great supportive environment for improving your songwriting and helping others.
Yeah, it's at the Transac.
Transac
it is air conditioned.
Brunswick and Bloor. I think it's air conditioned.
It's pretty air conditioned.
And they have beer.
It's not bad. And they have beer. They have cold beer.
So
And they have hot tea and coffee if you like that too.
They have coffee?
I think
Yeah,
so.
that changes
I've been
everything,
all
doesn't
this
it?
time and not getting a coffee.
Yeah, I think they have
Because I
a
just
coffee
didn't even
brewing
assume
in the
that they
back.
had
Or maybe it's a coffee porter. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I just
If-
walk
if-
into a
if you-
bar and I automatically assume that I should have a drink.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Well,
but
if
I'm
you, ask
sure
for,
they
if
do.
you ask for a beer, they give you one right away. If you ask for a tea, you got to go back and
Right.
boil the kettle and then.
Because I don't
pour
have
the tea.
enough money for beer, but I do have enough money for coffee.
There you go. There's always that.
As I feel like a lot of us probably are in the same position.
But you're saving money by the fact that the meetup is perfectly free.
That's true.
And the
it's a
Transac is really good to us.
And
'cause
it's a
they give
good
us that room
time as
for
well.
That's,
Yeah.
It is a very
It's a
good
fun time.
It's a
It
great
is.
time.
Some great songwriters there.
Yeah.
So we just before the break we heard from one of the songs from Robert, Magnolia. Now you've been playing for a while. But this is the first release from your band Satin.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Had you been working on other projects, or because this is new? This just came out in
Is the
April.
band new?
April, yeah, the album Drop Dead Gorgeous just came out April of this year on all platforms.
So
How
why
old is
now?
the
How
band?
long had it been? How long have these songs been stewing around?
Longer than I care to admit, it's one of these things where I've had a lot of kind of life getting in the way of living, and I've been in and out of several bands, and that kind of ultimately went nowhere, or just kind of fizzled out for one reason or another.
It's a
Serving
great title
time.
for a song, Life Getting in the Way of Living.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Or at least a line in a lyric.
Yeah, at least
or
a line,
something,
yeah.
And I wound up briefly, kind of, without getting into all the personal tragedies of my life, I briefly moved out to Las Vegas, lived out there for about a year and a half, and then kind of fortune led me to move back to the LA area about 3 years ago. Actually, 3 years ago, almost exactly on the 5th. And after that, I was able to kind of just get everything together and able to focus. The whole time I was writing and recording, just as I was building this up and working with my bandmates and collaborators and such, it was just pure determination, to be honest. It's like it's something I'm really passionate about and something I've been fortunate enough to do, but not necessarily do full time, you know what I mean? And just as I was able to have the resources and the support to actually get it finalized and produced, and meeting up with the right guys to help me finish that off.
Yeah. Is there a lot of collaboration in the band? Or?
As far as songwriting goes, like I'm the sole songwriter, excuse
Yeah.
me. But as far as David Bucci plays lead guitar on that, and I was working with producer Tim France who plays drums on it, and
So sort of arrangements and that
yes,
sort of thing.
absolutely. Like I'm terrible at lead guitar playing. I honestly, I can. You put me in a situation, and yes, I can come up with a nice, decent little melodic solo or something. But as far as real, kind of shredding lead, the stuff that impresses the chicks, that is not my forte at all. That's why I call Dave and say, hey man, can you help me out? And with this song with Magnolia, I mean, he was more than happy. He was chomping at the bit. Yeah, surprisingly, he really kind of held back. There's not really a spot for a proper guitar solo in that song, but he came up with his bits and fit them in little spaces without, in my opinion at least, I didn't feel he conflicted with the melody.
It was a bit of a break after the second chorus. It was
Yeah, there's a little bit.
A little bit instrumental thing. But it wasn't, who's the guy for Ozzy Osbourne? I always reference
Which
Zakk
one, Randy
Wild.
Rhodes
No,
or
Zakk Wild?
Zakk Wild.
Yeah,
he's had a lot of
he's
guys.
always shredding away and I always got the impression he's like, look at me.
Yeah.
Right? So this wasn't that. This was kind of understated and tasteful and nice.
Yeah.
Well, But it fit the groove of the song, right?
Yeah, I had no idea when I asked him to, for his contributions or how he would, there's a lot of guitars on that song. I mean, there are layers and layers of guitars on that song. I'm very much a meat and potatoes guitar guy. And I felt there were a few, probably the same spot you're referencing. I felt there could be a little something extra. And so when he came up with his arrangement, completely on his own, without any guidance or instruction from me, it was just kind of like, here, can you add something to this that might help this stand out a little bit more? And that's when I found out he had been really just waiting for me to ask him. And he laid down his parts. I think I was under the impression he did it real quick. It was something that just kind of flowed out of him.
Right.
He can play circles around me on guitar. He's that good of a guitar player, or either that or I'm that bad. Depending on which way you want to look at it.
It's all relative, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I like to say he's that good. So at least maybe I can, by comparison, I can sound like I'm better than I am.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, right.
And so you're the same players on all the songs?
Yes.
And it's a full length release? How many songs?
Yes, 12 songs.
12 songs.
Yeah.
Full album. So you still a believer in albums?
Yeah, I grew up with the album, and I know in these days it's so easy to just pop out. Like a lot of groups are doing like EPs,
Yeah. Or singles.
or singles, yeah.
Single every month or whatever. Yeah.
And I like the idea of that body of work.
Well, one thing we learned on Song Talk Radio is that college radio plays album format. Like there's some that play pop songs, but that they don't play EPs or they don't play singles. They only play songs that come off albums.
Oh, nice.
So it's a good thing that you did do a full length.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And certainly when you're submitting to college,
For college,
they want to see a body of work basically before they even play a single, right?
And is the album a collection of songs, or is there some sort of connecting idea through an overall theme or anything that connects it?
The overall theme is unrequited love. They're all related in the sense, not in a true concept album necessarily where it tells any kind of cohesive story, but by design, they're all relating different themes of unrequited love, and also just with internal kind of thoughts and dealing with emotions and external observations and events, all kind of related all around love.
Right. And does at any song, is there any requiting? Any happy endings?
Not on this release, I don't believe.
So you have to stay tuned for the next.
The instrumental, the last one, the only instrumental on the song, called "A Sliver of Hope."
Oh, okay.
So you end with just a little bit.
Oh, how parsimonious.
Just something,
So that's a fully instrumental track?
The last track.
The last track is fully instrumental?
Yes.
Cool.
Actually, that was the first one I wrote. I actually wrote that as a teenager. I used to work in a music store, and I was fortunate enough to have my own key to the store at such a young age. And I would go in. I had this little analog 4-track recorder, tape recorder, and I would just go in and just record little ideas and stuff. And this was one that I still had on an old cassette tape, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I was transferring them to my computer. Using the digital software that I have now, just to make sure, these tapes, they were really cheesy, not high grade, not DAT tapes or anything like that.
Yeah, just regular.
It's like a
audio tape.
Tascam or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I was transferring them to my computer it wasn't something I completely forgot about, but it was something that was definitely just buried in the background. So when I was transferring it about 2 years ago, I think, year ago, I was like, oh, that's really good. And all of a sudden some different arrangement ideas came for it, so I completed it.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing. Is that does happen sometimes. You revisit something from years ago and you give it a different spin.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, right? It's like I never would have thought of that when I first wrote it. But
exactly.
Now,
and that's why I definitely try to keep any ideas that I get, any ideas that I think might be half worth keeping, and I try my best to keep them organized for myself later on to come back to know what I'm referencing or something. So to kind of help with that creative aspect when maybe I hear it 3, 5, 10 years from now and go, oh wait, maybe I can finish that thought.
Right. So of these 12 songs, were they all written in more or less the same process or in a lot of different ways? How did they come together?
More or less the same process.
Which is?
Song title first, and then building. Usually, like what I find myself doing is I'll get a song title, and then I'll start coming up with related terms. Like maybe I'll refer to a thesaurus, or if I'm making an analogy or a metaphor or something, like how I want to play into that. And then I'll build from there, get like a word bank. And then sometimes I stumble in and find words that rhyme, like with Magnolia and Euphoria. They're not perfect rhymes, but it's, 3 syllables, both end with the ia, and as an example. And then building from there. The only song that I didn't have a title for first was Intangible. That one was actually, the title was actually added last, which is really, really rare for me. As I was writing that song, I had no idea what I was going to call it.
Right.
And then it wasn't until pretty much I think the end of it, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to call this Intangible. I'm like, okay,
Something I can hardly put my finger on.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I call it?
The title was Intangible.
What about Afterglow? How did that come together?
That actually, I had the title first, and then I actually had a date. I went on a date in West Hollywood, and on the way back, I was on the 101 heading north. Out of nowhere, the main chord progression, bum bum da 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 dum dum, popped in my head. I'm driving on the 101, and I'm frantically. My phone is on the driver's side seat of my car, and as I'm grabbing my phone to hum the idea, the melody popped in my head. So da 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 da. So I'm having two thoughts going simultaneously in my mind. I'm frantically wanting to record the first thought while the second thought is going in my head, and I want to now record that second thought. So I'm trying to while I'm driving. So it's like walking.
Which we don't encourage here on Song Talk Radio.
When you got to pull over the side of the road, do stuff, and then
Exactly.
That's which more reasonable heads would have prevailed. And then so I was able to capture that chord progression idea, and then as I was tracking on a second spot on my phone, the melody, I heard a third riff that it comes in during the second verse, but this da 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 da. So in a span of like 30 seconds, I get 3 ideas or something like this, all while I'm driving. Horribly, this is how most ideas come to me.
Yeah.
The worst time.
The most inopportune moments. Yeah.
When I'm on the twilight of sleep, when I'm driving, when I'm in a meeting, at the office type thing or something. In this instance, I was able to capture all 3 ideas. And somehow I knew that it was in E minor. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew once I got back to my place, I grabbed my guitar, and was like, this has got to be an E minor to like a C kind of chord progression. Normally, when an idea like that pops in my head, it's always in a inconvenient like B flat or E flat or something. and you start searching for it, and you wind up losing it.
Right.
Break out the capo.
Yeah, right. And in this one instance, at least, it was fortunate enough that I heard it in E minor. And I just knew, I had this title, and when I heard this idea pop in my head, I'm like, I'm going to call this Afterglow. I'm going to build a song around it. So that's where the genesis of that came from.
Well, shall we take a listen, Neil?
Let's take a listen.
Let's take a
Afterglow.
listen. Press some buttons, Rita.
Searching through the graveyard as night begins to fall. Got no idea where you are. Looking here.
That was Afterglow.
by Robert Cross. And
That's great.
Yeah, we have Robert in the studio here.
And again, sorry to interrupt, Neil.
Yeah, I was the first thing you said about the last song, Michael, was that it was kind of a wash. Like it's kind of, I was thinking the satin, there's like satin sheets, right? They're like, it's smooth and it's kind of, and that one I wasn't sort of paying that much attention to the lyric again, just letting it sort of, drift along and lovely.
Yeah, it reminded me not of a particular, but there's something about Oasis in the
I've heard that.
the acoustic guitar and the kind of the melody of the vocals.
Yeah, I was definitely a big Oasis fan as a teenager. So
Yeah.
I love me some Gallagher brothers.
And some layered guitars and whatnot. Yeah, no, it's very cool, very melodic. And again, I had the same experience. I listen to it and go, okay, I get this vibe from it, and then I read the lyrics, and the lyrics are a little more morbid than the song would at first listen lead you to believe.
Yeah,
What is wrong with you?
I wish I knew. The chorus came to me real quick, pretty much within a week or so, and then I was stumped. So the chorus and the bridge is just repeating "so far away," "you're so far away" kind of thing. So for about a year after after that song idea came to me.
Sorry. I just wanted to let you all know that Robert told us during the break that the date did go well. Okay, so it's not anything bad about the date. Okay, as you were saying.
Searching through the graveyard.
Exactly.
Well,
It's not a comment on the quality of the date.
yeah.
But I really struggled with the verses for about a year. And kind of similar, I guess maybe driving on the 101 must inspire me, because I was driving south this time, and all of a sudden just the lyric, not really in a full linear sense, but basically the basic ideas started coming to me, where making a metaphor of an afterglow as you're chasing that ghost of someone who's out of your life or whatever.
Right.
And the effects that it has on you, or of your, of where you're at. And I was like, oh, okay, once that thought came into my mind, I was able to kind of piece together the lyric pretty quickly for the verses.
Right. Because that's something I wanted to ask you earlier, too, is you come up with a title, but then you always have to come up with a concept.
Yes.
Like, what's the actual song about?
Yes, that always helps me, at least.
Well, certainly, because especially a title like Afterglow, like unless your title's a full phrase that maybe gives you a hint, but if it's one word like that could mean just about anything.
Yes, which is great, gives you that freedom.
It gives you that freedom, but then you do have to
song
decide.
you kind of get locked into.
You're right.
Yeah,
Girlfriend in a coma.
Yes.
Girlfriend in a coma.
We
pretty
hate it
much
when our
tells you
friends
where you're
become
going.
successful. You know where that song is going.
Yeah.
The last of the famous
Playboys.
international Playboys.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, yeah, there's always that, right? So yeah.
Afterglow is nice and open. It can go in many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it was coming to you, you were saying it was the concept. It wasn't like a phrase here, a phrase there. You kind of went searching for the phrase after you had the idea?
It started just kind of flowing, and I was able to kind of, searching through the graveyard was kind of the first line, and I started just kind of piecing together, as I was on about an hour and a half long drive going southbound on the 101.
Oh, just 2 blocks then?
Yeah, right. Yeah, with traffic and everything. I will say, LA traffic is nowhere near as bad as you probably think, but
Toronto has the worst.
Toronto is pretty bad, too. I'm sure
I
you've
think Las
noticed.
Vegas would give Toronto, but I don't know. I've seen how congested it is around here.
It's ridiculous.
In my brief time in Las Vegas, going 10 blocks would, you just get red light in succession with itself, and it'd take you 45 minutes just to go 2 city blocks.
Oh, God.
But yeah, definitely in the brief time I've been here in Toronto, I was like, it is packed around here. But yeah, I was just driving down on the 101, and as the ideas were coming, I was again just pulling out my phone and just kind of speaking. I wasn't really singing. It was just getting the idea down. I'd worry about whittling down or expanding if as needed. And thankfully, most of it was, it wasn't perfect, but I got about 95% of it down during that one trip. And it's interesting, sometimes you just kick an idea around, and in this case, it took me about a year to complete.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But driving is great for songwriting.
Apparently.
Well, you're in a nice acoustically sound little, secure place, and you have the time.
Yeah, right. And
And you don't have the radio on, correct?
Well, sometimes you can.
Sometimes you do.
I don't know. Do you write songs with other music happening?
I've never tried that.
Because you can kind of, if it's a song you don't know, you can kind of bob along the top of the lyrics, like the melody, and just kind of like sing it like kind of what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out really well.
Oh, interesting. That may be a good technique to try.
let someone else do the bed work, and then you just,
Right.
and you just write the top line to someone else's melody.
Yeah. You can always borrow the chord progression. You get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, because lyrically, it is fairly focused. Like you got that, and the imagery is all consistent and actually fairly full. Like you've got the graveyard, you've got the dying, the ghost, feel it in my bones. Bringing you back, Valley of the Dead. Like you've covered it all. A hole within my soul. Like it's very kind of metaphysical that way.
Yeah.
Which I think is totally what you're going for.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, that's how you sort of judge a song, if you will, is do your intention line up with your result.
Well, I feel like, if you have a chance to articulate a thought, that's the great thing about songwriting, is just to be able to kind of channel whatever thoughts or emotions you're trying to share or express. And the more, the more ability that you have with language and with prose, the more likely you'll be, I would think, to connect with others, so others could have the opportunity to understand or relate. And people are obviously not going to have the same experiences as you, but more likely you're going to find someone out there who's had similar experiences, or at least in some way, shape, or form they can relate to what it is that you're saying or singing about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're able to articulate feelings well, then it does increase the chances that you can connect to others. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you hope for, at least. At least that's what I try for.
So both of these songs go sort of verse, sort of mini pre-chorus, verse, mini pre-chorus, bridge, and then chorus out. Is that a structure you generally kind of stick to, or do you play with structure very much?
Yeah, a little bit. I found myself for a time trying to avoid bridges, or at least putting lyrics to bridges, and I would do like little instrumental breaks or something,
Right.
and I've also done the kind of pre-chorus, like a more proper kind of pre-chorus. I've heard of some songwriters where they'll put in multiple bridges in a song, or I don't have an example of this, but I've even heard of a case, I think it's like a Garth Brooks song, where the bridge comes in, it's like verse bridge, and then verse chorus. And I haven't quite gotten that experimental or that good yet, or however you want to say it. But
Well, you only have to go back
certain
to
pop songs do that,
Yeah.
play with the form, because they're trying to make something juicy and melodic every second of it.
Yeah.
They don't let
Right off
things
the top.
hang. They don't get into a groove necessarily. They just want to keep, it's kind of almost like switching the channel and having a lot of different songs all contained within the one. So I guess the good pop songwriters manage to keep it still a cohesive whole despite doing that.
Well, songwriting is a lot about tension and release, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these hook after hook after hook, it's all release.
right.
I guess,
There's not a lot of
dynamics.
tension, right?
I wanted to ask you, so we're listening to this music, but you co-write with other artists, country writers and other types of music as well. How does that work with your songwriting? Do you find you write differently in different types of music?
I kind of like, I'm fortunate enough where I've had people actually approach me and ask me to contribute to help them with songwriting and such. And I feel really honored. I remember when I first got approached several years ago, my natural instinct was, why are you asking me? Like, not in any sense other than, why don't you just do it yourself? Like in a very innocent kind of way.
Right.
And then in the last few years, I've had people approach me asking for ideas, and I'm not precious with ideas. I figure it's something, creativity is something you should really exercise on and expand upon as much as possible. And I'm not really a country guy or a pop punk guy. Those aren't really like my styles of music. I don't dislike them necessarily, but at the same time, I wanted to challenge myself and see what I could come up with in that arena with that style of music.
And how was that experience?
I've enjoyed it. I mean, first off, I just feel so honored that people would appreciate my thoughts and ideas and take them into their own music.
Is it around the whole gamut of songwriting, or are you just doing lyrics, or just
Kind
melodies,
of
or
both.
kind of just a little bit of everything?
Yeah, kind of adding.
What did you learn?
I've learned that I've had people say how much they respect my thoughts and ideas, which means a lot. But also just that, it's all just creativity, and whatever boxes you contain yourself in aren't necessarily, you can open the box and expand beyond that.
Right on.
Good words of wisdom there.
Excellent words of wisdom.
Shall we end on that, Neil?
We'll end on that. You'll definitely have to come back next time. We'll talk about collaboration.
Oh, absolutely.
Next time.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Some of your projects on that front, because there's lots more to talk about, but I'm afraid we are out of time. That's all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to our guest, Robert Cross. Where can our listeners find more of your music?
I'm on all platforms under Drop Dead Gorgeous. The band's name is Satin, and the website is satinsounds.net.
satinsounds.net, and we'll certainly link to that
check
from
out
our
the
Song
other
Talk
10
Radio page.
songs.
Yes, and please send us your impressions on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Song Talk Radio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Even after the show, we'll share your thoughts in a future episode. Maybe next week.
will.
And be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes now. And please stop by the site, songtalk.ca. Subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher.com, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and many others. And don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter at songtalk.ca. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on Song Talk Radio on our resources page at the website. And once again, if you're in the Toronto area, please join us. Our next Song Talk meetup is on Sunday, July 28th from 1 to 4 p.m. That's at the Transact Club in the Annex area of Toronto between Spadina and Bathurst stations. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. The beer is not free.
But it is worth it.
It is worth it. Stop by the songtalk.ca website for the link. Thanks to Micah for handling our social media
Thanks,
tonight.
Micah.
You're welcome.
And on the tech board thingy, Rita, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita.
Making it sound good. And most of all, we'd like to thank you, our devoted listeners. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Michael if he wants to.
I'll be cycling west on Richmond Street a bit later. You can follow me there.
Just look for the guy with the helmet.
I have a helmet today.
And Mr. Micah?
Jimmy Micah, or at Jimmy Micah rather, on Instagram.
And Rita's still off the grid?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's following Michael on the bike.
Yes. We're off the grid.
Right. And of course, Robert Cross, you're
At Satin_sounds on Instagram.
Satin_sounds on Instagram. And please stop by the website, songtalk.ca, browse past shows, find out how you can be a guest, and keep on writing.
See ya.
Ciao.